I've camped alone plenty of times. I like the quiet, the space. No one talking, no phones buzzing, just you and the desert. So when I found that spot tucked between two massive rock formations about 3 hours outside Barstow, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. Perfect shelter from the wind, flat ground, total silence. I set up my tent just before sunset, cracked open a beer, and watched the sky turn purple. It was perfect. Until I woke up at 2 in the morning. I don't know what pulled me out of sleep. No sound, no movement, just this sudden cold awareness that something was wrong. I laid there in my sleeping bag, staring at the roof of the tent, listening. Nothing. Not even wind. The desert was completely still. Then I heard it, a soft crunching sound, like footsteps on sand, slow, deliberate, circling the tent. I unzipped the flap and shined my flashlight out into the darkness. Nothing, just empty desert stretching out in every direction. But the sand around my tent looked different, smooth, too smooth, like someone had taken a broom and swept it clean in wide, careful strokes. I stepped out, barefoot, the sand cold under my feet. No tracks, no prints, just that unnatural smoothness spreading out from my camp in a perfect ring. I told myself it was the wind. Maybe I'd slept through a gust that leveled everything out. I went back inside, zipped the tent shut, and tried to sleep. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. 2 hours later, I checked again. The sand had changed. There were ridges now, tiny raised lines in the sand, all pointing toward my tent, and they were closer than before, maybe 6 inches closer. I crouched down and touched one of the ridges. It was fresh. The sand was still loose, like it had just been pushed up from underneath. My stomach tightened. There was no wind. There hadn't been any wind all night. I stayed awake after that, sat in the open door of my tent with my flashlight, watching the sand. Every 20 minutes I'd check, and every time those ridges had moved, inching closer, silently, steadily, like something was burrowing just beneath the surface, pushing the sand up as it crawled toward me. By the time the sky started turning gray, I was barely breathing. My hands were shaking. I hadn't heard a single sound all night, but the sand kept moving. When the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, I finally stepped outside. What I saw made my blood go cold. A perfect circle, 20 feet in diameter. The sand around my entire camp was covered in those ridges, hundreds of them, crisscrossing and overlapping like something had circled me over and over again. But they weren't footprints, they weren't paw prints. They looked like drag marks, like fingers, long, thin fingers scraping through the sand, pulling something forward. I stood there frozen, staring at the patterns, trying to make sense of it. That's when I felt it, a vibration under my feet. Soft at first, then stronger. The sand near my left boot started to ripple, not from wind, from below. Something was moving underneath me, fast. I ran. I didn't pack, didn't grab my tent, just sprinted toward my car, sand kicking up behind me, heart slamming in my chest. I could feel it following me, the vibrations tracking my steps. I didn't look back. I got in my car, locked the doors, and floored it out of there. I didn't stop until I hit pavement. A week later, I pulled up satellite images of that spot. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I zoomed in on the coordinates. The sand around where I'd camped was covered in trails, hundreds of them. Those same long finger-like drag marks carved into the desert floor, all converging on that one spot between the rocks. I showed it to a guy at a gas station near the turnoff. Older local, looked like he'd lived out there his whole life. He glanced at the image on my phone and handed it back without a word. I asked him if he knew anything about that area. He just stared at me for a second, then said, "That's why nobody camps there, twice." I asked him what he meant. He turned and walked away. Didn't say another word. I still have the satellite image saved on my phone. I look at it sometimes, late at night, and I can't stop thinking about what was under that sand, what circled me for hours while I slept, what was waiting for me to step outside. And I keep wondering, if I'd stayed just a little longer, would I have made it back to my car at all? I was driving through the Nevada desert at 2 in the morning when I saw the lights. Not headlights, not a town, just this bright, almost neon glow cutting through the darkness like a beacon. And here's the thing that made my stomach drop. The closer I got, the more I realized those lights looked old. Like, really old. The kind of gas station signs you'd see in photos from your parents' road trips. My fuel gauge had been flashing angry red for the last 20 minutes. I hadn't seen civilization in over an hour, just endless black desert and that ribbon of asphalt disappearing into nothing. So when I spotted those lights, I didn't have much choice. I needed gas, and this was it. As I got closer, maybe half a mile out, the lights flickered. Just once. But it was enough to make me ease off the gas pedal. The sign came into focus, Pete's Desert Stop, in that retro cursive lettering they don't use anymore. The pumps looked ancient. The tall, skinny kind with the rounded tops and analog numbers that flip when you fill up. I couldn't remember the last time I'd actually seen one of those in real life. The parking lot was completely empty. No cars, no people, no sounds except my engine and the wind pushing tumbleweeds across the cracked pavement. I pulled up to the nearest pump and killed the ignition. The silence that followed was heavy. You know that feeling when you walk into a place and your brain just screams, "Wrong?" Yeah, that. I sat there for a minute, just staring at the station through my windshield. The lights were on inside, fluorescent and buzzing, casting this sickly yellow glow through windows so dirty they looked frosted. I could see shelves, products, the outline of a counter, but no movement, nobody. My hand was on the door handle when I noticed the dust. Thick dust coating everything visible through those windows. The kind of dust that takes years to accumulate. And the products on the shelves, even from here, I could tell the packaging looked vintage. Old logos, old designs. I should have driven away. I should have risked running out of gas and hoping for another station, but I was tired, stressed, and convincing myself I was being paranoid. So I got out. The heat hit me first, that dry desert warmth that doesn't cool even at night. Then I heard it. A bell. That little brass bell stores used to have over their doors, tinkling away. But I hadn't opened the door yet. I was still 10 feet from the entrance. My hands were shaking as I pulled the door open. The bell rang again, louder this time, and I stepped inside. The smell hit me like a wall. Stale air, dust, something else underneath, something chemical and wrong. The shelves were fully stocked. Chips, candy bars, motor oil, all of it covered in that same thick layer of dust. I picked up a candy bar without thinking. The wrapper design was from the 90s. I knew because my dad used to buy this exact kind when I was a kid, and they'd changed the logo years ago. "Hello?" My voice cracked. No answer. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and a weird staticky sound coming from somewhere deeper in the store. I moved toward the counter, my shoes leaving prints in the dust on the floor. The cash register sat there, one of those old mechanical ones with the big buttons. The display screen glowed green, and my blood went cold when I read what it said. Last transaction, 03/17/1994, 11:47 p.m. That's when I saw the figure. It was standing near the back door, partially hidden in shadow. Perfectly still. Human-shaped, but something about the proportions seemed off. Maybe too tall or too thin. I couldn't see a face, just this dark silhouette that didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there. "Hey," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. Is anyone working? I need gas." Nothing. The figure didn't respond, didn't shift. It was like looking at a cardboard cutout. I started backing toward the door, never taking my eyes off that shape. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. I'd made it maybe 3 steps when the lights went out. Complete Total darkness. I froze. 2 seconds, that's all it was. 2 seconds of pure black silence where I couldn't see my own hand in front of my face. Then, the lights flickered back on with a sharp zzz. The figure was behind the counter now. Right there, right in front of me, maybe 6 feet away. I hadn't heard footsteps, hadn't heard movement. It had just appeared. I still couldn't see its face clearly, just this shape leaning slightly forward like it was waiting for me to say something. I ran. I slammed through that door so hard that the bell cracked against the glass. My car was right there. Keys were in my pocket. I fumbled with them, dropped them, grabbed them off the pavement, and threw myself into the driver's seat. I jammed the key into the ignition and turned. The second my engine roared to life, every single light in the gas station shut off. All at once. Not flickering, not fading, just click. Complete darkness. Like someone had thrown a breaker switch. The neon sign, the fluorescent lights inside, even the tiny bulbs on the pumps. Everything went black, like the building had never been powered at all. I didn't wait. I floored it, tires screaming on the pavement, and I didn't look back until that place was just a dark spot in my rearview mirror. I drove until sunrise with my windows open, gulping desert air, too scared to process what had just happened. When the sun came up, I circled back. I had to. I needed to know I hadn't completely lost my mind. I found the spot. I recognized the mile markers, the shape of the mountains in the distance. But there was no gas station. Just a burned concrete slab, cracked and blackened, with some rusted metal posts sticking up where the pumps would have been. Dead weeds growing through the cracks, the kind of destruction that's decades old. I stood there in the morning heat, staring at nothing, trying to reconcile what I'd seen with what was in front of me. Then I checked my phone, my banking app. There was a charge last night, 2:17 a.m., Pete's Desert Stop. The transaction date on the receipt? March 17th, 1994.
We saw him at dusk, just this dark silhouette standing at the top of the dune, perfectly still against the orange sky. At first, we thought it was another camper, maybe someone checking out the sunset view. But then, the sun dropped below the horizon, the sky went purple, and he was still there, still standing, still staring down at us. There were 3 of us, me, Marcus, and Jenna. We'd driven out to this remote canyon in southern Utah for a photography trip. The place was gorgeous. All these massive sand dunes surrounded by red rock walls, totally isolated. We'd set up camp at the base of the biggest dune, using it as a windbreak. Perfect spot. Or so we thought. "That guy's been there for like 20 minutes, Jenna said, lowering her camera. She'd been shooting the last light on the canyon walls when she noticed him. Marcus squinted up at the ridge. Maybe he's meditating or something. For 20 minutes? Without moving at all? I grabbed my binoculars and focused on the figure. It was definitely a man, tall and thin, wearing what looked like dark clothes. But the weird thing was how still he was. I mean, nobody stands that still. You shift your weight, you adjust your posture, you breathe. Even through the binoculars, I couldn't see any movement, not even the slight expansion of his chest or the flutter of clothing in the wind. "That's unsettling," I muttered. We tried to ignore it, made dinner, started a small fire, talked about shots we wanted to get in the morning. But every time I glanced up at that dune, he was still there. The temperature dropped fast after sunset, and we could see our breath in the firelight. But this guy just stood on top of that exposed ridge like the cold didn't touch him. Around 9 o'clock, Marcus stood up with his flashlight. "I'm gonna check it out." "Check what out?" Jenna asked. "The dune. See if there are prints. See how he got up there." We followed him to the base of the dune, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The sand was smooth, untouched. And here's the thing about sand dunes. They hold prints perfectly. Every step leaves a mark. But there was nothing. No trail leading up, no disturbance at all. Just pristine, wind-rippled sand stretching up to the ridge where that figure stood. "That's impossible," Jenna whispered. "How did he get up there?" Marcus aimed his flashlight at the top of the dune, the beam barely reaching. For a second, the light caught the figure square on, and I saw nothing. No details, just a dark shape that seemed to absorb the light. Then the figure was gone, just vanished. Where'd he go? Marcus swept his flashlight back and forth across the ridge. Empty. Nothing. We stood there in the cold darkness, breathing hard, not saying what we were all thinking. Then Jenna grabbed my arm. Look. She pointed to our left, to a smaller dune maybe 50 yards away. The figure was standing on top of it now, closer, still facing us, still not moving. That's not possible, Marcus said. We've been watching. He couldn't have... He's closer, I interrupted. He's getting closer. We hurried back to camp, trying to act calm but failing miserably. The fire had died down to embers, casting these weird dancing shadows across our tents. We sat in a circle, nobody wanting to admit how scared we were. That's when we heard the whispering. It was faint, barely audible over the wind. Words, maybe, or something like words, but distorted and wrong. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing off the canyon walls. I couldn't tell if it was in front of us or behind us or right next to my ear. Please tell me you guys hear that, Jenna said. We all nodded. Marcus grabbed a lantern and held it up, spinning slowly, trying to locate the source. The light created this bubble of visibility around us, and everything beyond it was just solid black desert and star-filled sky. Then the sand started vibrating. Not violently, just this subtle tremor, like something massive was moving underneath us. Our water bottles buzzed against the cooler, the tent stakes rattled. The sensation crawled up through the soles of my boots and into my spine. What the hell is that? Marcus's voice cracked. The vibration stopped as suddenly as it started. The silence that followed was worse. We could hear our own breathing, rapid and panicked. Then a shadow passed between two of our tents, tall, moving slowly, but there were no footsteps, no sound, just this dark shape gliding across the sand like it was floating. Did you see that? Jenna was standing now, backing toward the car. Did you both see that? Marcus was already at his tent, frantically unzipping it. We need to go, right now. We need to leave. Wait, I saw something. Jenna pointed her flashlight at Marcus's gear pile. When that shadow passed, I swear I saw someone crouching there, right by your backpack. We all looked. Nothing was there now. But Marcus's backpack was unzipped, things pulled out and scattered across the sand. None of us had touched his stuff since we set up camp. That was it. We didn't discuss it, didn't debate, we just moved. We threw our gear into the car with shaking hands, not bothering to pack things properly, just grabbing and tossing. The whole time I kept expecting to see that figure standing right behind us when we turned around, kept expecting to feel cold fingers on the back of my neck. We were in the car in less than 5 minutes, doors locked, engine running. Marcus threw it in reverse and started backing away from the campsite. Our headlights swept across the canyon as we turned. The figure was standing in the middle of the road. Marcus slammed on the brakes. We were maybe 30 feet away, the high beams illuminating him completely now. He was tall, impossibly tall, wearing clothes that looked rotted and strange. But his face, I still can't describe his face. It was like looking at a photograph that's been exposed wrong, all shadows and absence where features should be. Drive. Just drive through him. Just go, I whispered. Marcus floored it. We shot forward, and I squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the impact. But there was nothing, just the sound of tires on dirt. When I opened my eyes, the road was empty. The figure was gone. We drove straight through the night, didn't stop until we hit a gas station 2 hours away, sat in the fluorescent lights drinking terrible coffee until sunrise, none of us willing to talk about what happened. But it bothered me. It really bothered me. So a week later, I called the local ranger station, asked if anyone had reported anything strange near that canyon. There was this long pause on the line. "You saw the Watcher, didn't you?" the ranger said finally. She didn't sound surprised. She sounded tired. "The what?" "That's what locals call him, the Watcher of the Dunes. People report seeing him maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Always the same thing. Figure on the dunes, never moves, gets closer without walking." "Has anyone tried to investigate? Go up to him?" Another long pause, longer this time. Yeah, a few people tried. Hikers who thought it was a prank or a statue or something. They went up to see. We had to send search parties. Did you find them? We found their cameras, their gear, footprints leading up the dunes. But the footprints, they just stop, middle of the slope, like the people just vanished mid-step. We never found the bodies. My hands went cold. How many people? 4, over the last 15 years. So we don't advertise it, and we don't encourage investigation. If you see him, you leave. That's the rule. Sounds like you were smart enough to follow it. I hung up and called Marcus and Jenna, told them what the ranger said. We agreed to never go back. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about that figure standing in our headlights, the way he didn't move when we drove toward him, the way he just wasn't there anymore. And I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed. If you like this video, don't forget to comment and subscribe.